Hi guys, my name is Marina Lantos and thank you so much for joining me again. Today's class is going to be a layered bob. There will be two demonstrations on the layered bob. Today's look is going to be more movement in the back and less movement in the front. This haircut is ideal for someone who has a rounded face shape, someone who has a lot of hair, or someone who doesn't want to see much movement in the front. So if we want more movement in the back, ideally we want to start where the emphasis of the haircut is going to be. So with this look, we are going to create the line technique first, whether you want it to be square shape where the back is going to be the same length as the front, or you could create a triangular shape where the back is shorter and the front is longer. Once you establish your line technique first, we're going to go right into the layers. Stay tuned. Okay, let's get started. So far, what I've done is I've sectioned off center part and then took a vertical section right from the top of the head, vertically down, right to the top of the ear. Since the look that we're going for has more movement in the back and less movement in the front, we are going to start where the emphasis of the haircut is. The first section is going to be directly in the center of the head. Keep your sections really clean by grooming that hair out of the way. So my over direction is going to be directly back from where this section grows on the head. So if I lift this hair, at any point, I should see the two sides of this section meeting up between my fingers directly in the center. That's how I know my over direction is going right in the center of the head. Now that we've discussed our over direction, let's discuss our elevation. The look that we're going for has just enough movement that it could be called a textured bob. We're not looking for lots of movement on the top, and we are not looking for too much bulk on the bottom. So I chose to keep my elevation to about here. Now the next step is the choice of length. If you guys can tell that between my fingers, the guide that I have is gradually getting longer and longer and longer. And that's because I did a line technique prior to this haircut, right? Before this tutorial. Line technique is a form of graduation, which means the length are gradually getting longer. The longer piece that I use as a guide means the heavier the length is going to be on the bottom. So if I chose to use a piece of hair that grows all the way from the top of the round of the head, so top of the O bone, and use that as a guide, I'm going to barely create any movement. So I'm going to cut this, and then we're going to come take a look a little bit closer so you guys can tell the difference. So right over here, you can tell the amount of movement that I created. The shortest piece is falling right here. Not too much movement, and it still looks very bobby. So I'm going to go right back and take that length a little bit shorter. I'm going to resection my center parting, groom and clip that hair out of the way. Now, instead of using the piece of hair that grows on top of the O bone, I'm going to use a piece of hair that grows right at the O bone. So look how much more hair that I'm cutting off. I kept my elevation exactly the same, and my cutting line is mirroring the head shape that's happening at this elevation. So as I move up, all I'm doing is I'm continuing that cutting line, and I'm creating a fluid shape, fluid line that gradually is getting longer. Now let's take another look. Now if I move that hair around, do you guys see how much more movement that I've created now? And the length is becoming a lot skinnier. So now this is less of a bob shape, much more of a textured bob shape. Section 2 is going to be parallel to the section 1. I'm going to section it, a vertical section, combine the two sections together. When I combine the two sections together, my over direction is going to be, again, in the center of these two sections. So if I look from above, I should see the two sides from my sections meeting up between my fingers, and my fingers should be right in the center of this sectioning. Hold it at the same elevation as where I was cutting it before. Keep my fingers parallel to the head shape. Find your guide and cut right to the guide. Careful not to change your elevation drastically as you go up this section. We want to make sure that we're creating a fluid line all the way from the bottom of the section all the way to the top until we run out of hair to cut. Section 2. Now the next step is I'm going to move my section 1 out of the way. And my last section is going to be the rest of this whole side. The reason why I want to move section 1 out of the way is because I want to try to keep 2 sections between my fingers. This way I know my over direction is going to be exactly the same between section 1 and 2, 3 and 4. So again, my over direction is moving the hair just a little bit away from where it grows on the head and bring it right in the center of these 2 sections. Now let's repeat on the opposite side. So I have section 1 and section 2 sectioned off already. Collect the 2 sections together. My over direction is going to be exactly the same. I chose to stand on the same exact side, which means I'm going to comb the hair instead of towards me, away from me, to keep the over direction in the center of these 2 sections. So once I cut this bottom portion of my section, we're going to stop and show you a different angle. Steady. You guys see how my elevation has not really changed from the bottom of the section and then all the way to the top. All I'm doing is I'm just moving my fingers up to create a fluid line that follows the head shape. The next step is moving the first section out of the way and adding another vertical section. So now I have section 2 and section 3 between my fingers. I'm going to collect the 2 sections together, and my over direction is again going to be right in the center of these 2 sections together. Always want to make sure that you're finding your guide and your fingers are matching up to exactly what the guide is doing. And the last section, I'm going to move section 2 out of the way, move that hair out, collect the 2 sections together, keep elevation exactly the same throughout the haircut, and whatever hair that's reaching, that's all I'm going to cut. And now to cross check, I'm going to take a horizontal section, bring hair at the same elevation and over direction as I was cutting, and I should see a clean cutting line that is a square shape. Now we can move on to the front. I'm going to take a vertical section from the front of the ear, move that hair out of the way, subsection, 2 sections worth of hair. Half of that section has already been cut, and that's going to be our guide for the front of the haircut. Now we're going to find the elevation and over direction as how we were cutting our back of the haircut. We're going to use that same elevation, same over direction, and cut a cutting line that's mirroring our cross check. The rest of the haircut is simple.
Repeat on the opposite side.
Elevation and over direction exactly the same. That's how we know that we are preserving the length that's going to be around the front hairline. Elevation stays the same. Over direction stays the same. My fingers and knuckles are parallel to the floor. And the last section, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Just keep in mind that this haircut could always be altered to your client's needs by changing your elevation and your over direction. And it's always going to depend whether you want more or less movement. Thank you so much.